All right. So last time, when we left off last time, you had come up with a list of potential ways to access scripts from other scripts because we don't actually know how to do that yet. So this is a really important thing, and another kind of common beginner programmer mistake is that, and this is something I actually really suffered from, is that as soon as you find a way to do something, like you've been wanting to do that, and then you look through, your sources of information that you have, and you find a way to achieve that thing that you want to achieve, and that's super exciting, and the instinct is, well, let's just dive in and try that. And let's start trying to make the thing that we want to make. So you've found a method to access other components. So why not just dive right in and start trying to create an array of, to try to actually create the final functionality that's going to let us scale our game objects. And I really want to emphasize to you that that is not a good idea. And the reasons for that are this. One, it's really easy to find a method to achieve something. But there are often problems in that method that don't become apparent until you've played around with using that a little bit. So if you dive right in and start trying to create your final functionality, you'll end up getting pretty far down the road to executing that before you discover the problems in that method. Another issue with this kind of desire to discover something and then just dive in and start playing with it is that there's almost always several different methods of solving a problem. So until you've experimented with a few different ways of going about it, you end up kind of missing out on the potential easier routes to achieve it. So I hope I've made my argument enough, but really the idea is discover a bunch of different methods of achieving something, experiment with them all in a kind of non-production environment, and then once you kind of have a feel for how each little piece works, then you can start thinking about how to apply it to the final production code. So that's what we're going to do here. So, and actually we're going to do this in an entirely new project so that the experiments that we create don't interfere with the functionality that we've done up to this point, and we don't get confused like, oh, is that my fake script or is that a real script? So just create a whole new project. And we're going to call this access scripts test. Okay. And we're going to create that. All right. So you have the methods that you learn. I'm just moving around my workspace here. You have the methods that you learned to achieve this. And you're more than welcome after these tutorials to go back and try to come up with experience for those methods as well. But I'm going to focus on two methods that I've found that I think are going to be the most applicable to this problem. And the way that we're going to tackle this in this experiment is rather than just writing random code to demonstrate it, like we could just copy paste code from the sources that we found it, or we could just write meaningless code. But it's actually much easier to understand how this stuff works if you create a game scenario. Like if you name your scripts like they would be in the final game, just to give yourself an idea of how this stuff works. And that'll become apparent as we go along. So let's just create. So I'm just going to create a basic game scenario that will demonstrate this new method. So let's just create an empty game object, and you can actually do Control, I think it's Control Alt S on PC, but I'm not sure. But if not, it's just create empty game object. So let's create an empty game object, and let's call that player. And then let's create another empty game object, and let's call that inventory. Okay. Oh, you're chatting me while I'm recording a tutorial for you. That's interesting. Okay, so we have our this basic scenario, and let's create assets, create C# script, and let's just call that inventory as well. And let's attach our inventory to our inventory game objects. You can see that showed up. And let's create another script. Assets, create C# script, and let's whoop. Okay, so this is a kind of gotcha with creating scripts. If you create a script and hit enter before entering a name, the script won't be named correctly. So let's actually just delete that. And then again, Unity will automatically change the name of the script for you in the script, but as soon as you hit enter, that's like set, and you have to go in and change it. So that's why we're going to recreate it. So we'll go in here, and we're just going to call this player, and then we're going to attach that to the player. Okay, so we have a basic structure here. This makes sense. So you have a player script that's going to help you, move around and shoot and be damaged and all that, and you have an inventory that's going to handle your items. So the next thing we're going to do is actually start to mess around with different methods for accessing game objects.